Welcome, fellow travelers. I'm Kat, and I'm joining Chibi and Virtek at the Golden Feather. Come on in, grab a seat, and let's share tales of adventure.
I want to take us over to Wandering Mist, who is a friend of ours for a while, a community volunteer moderator, and just all-around cool person. We've had him on the podcast a couple times. He posted a question asking about favorite and least favorite boss mechanics, and just a disclaimer, he did not make this thread as a member of Intrepid Studios, and nothing in the thread is meant to provide feedback to the developers. It's purely for fun and an interesting discussion point. And he posted this on January 1st. And so he wants to know your favorite and your least favorite.
So coming up with a favorite is really hard because the least favorites immediately come to mind. So most of my raiding experience has been a World of Warcraft. I did Mythic raiding there for a while back in Legion, and then mostly just been a heroic raider for the last few expansions. And I've raided in Guild Wars too. Killed all the bosses probably 50 times in that game. So the mechanics I hate the most definitely are the instant wipe mechanics.
Right.
I'll guess I'll rephrase that. Instant wipe mechanics in fights that last more than 5 minutes.
Right.
So, for example, most end bosses in World of Warcraft they're about 10-minute fights. They have 4 phases. Each phase lasts like 3 minutes or in some change, and so it's a really long fight. And for there to be instant wipe mechanics in the final phase is so damaging to a group psyche.
Right.
It's like we just spent 9 minutes just for the whole raid to wipe because one person made a mistake. Those mechanics are truly, truly awful, and I think that it breaks apart friend groups. It creates drama, and it sucks to be that person, right? Especially if you've done it more than once. Like you feel like you're the reason that your raid isn't successful or isn't downing that boss. And I don't like mechanics that put people in the situation to feel that way, especially if it's really late in the fight and you really didn't have a lot of time to practice, or maybe it's the first time you even got that mechanic, right? Maybe it's just random and you just happen to get it and it's your first time having to deal with it, and you wipe the group because you didn't have muscle memory down on what to do, right? So it's just very demoralizing. So that's my least favorite. My favorite mechanics are very much created around having to coordinate individuals going to do different things during the fight. So one of the bosses in the very first raid wing in Guild Wars 2 that was always really fun was a boss in a center platform, and there were NPCs that would fire cannons on above platforms, and it was in a rotation that these cannons would go off. They did a lot of damage to your party on the main platform, so you had to go up there and kill those NPCs and take out the cannons in order to not wipe your raid. And so you had to pick like basically 2 or 3 people to rotate going up and to kill those guns all throughout the fight. And if you didn't do that, you were definitely going to wipe, or it was going to be really tough. And I like having things for people to do other than whack on the boss. Those are really fun, and I've seen a lot of unique, creative ways of doing that. Especially, I think Guild Wars 2 probably emphasizes doing that the most in a lot of their fights. They always try to tie in some kind of secondary or tertiary mechanic that you have to contend with throughout the fight, and you really need dedicated people who are going to handle that. So it's less whack-a-mole, tank and spank, and avoiding bad stuff on the ground. Like you have to actually actively go do other things as part of that fight. And I think that makes it fun and engaging. It makes you feel like you're learning. And the people who step up to do those special roles in a raid is something to kind of take pride in, that they've mastered that mechanic and they're the go-to guy that has to go do that thing. Like it gives the DPS something to be proud of. Other than numbers.
Yeah, it's
Mad Hatter says Whack-a-Boss.
Whack-a-Boss, the new arcade game. Yeah, I'll start with my least favorite, and that is poorly timed abilities in general. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time it is like the one-shot type mechanics, but it's one-shot mechanics that either have almost no forecasting whatsoever. No, there's almost no tell to it. It's just you have a 1 second reaction time or something like that. Or one-shot mechanics or really large damage either way, large raid damage that is not on a timer, but everything else is on a timer. So it's just whenever the cooldown happens, it might cast, maybe. So you could end up going through a really rough spot because of all the timed things that are supposed to be coinciding just at a certain point, and then that big thing comes in, and it's just why did you?
You're giving me PTSD from the Mistress fight in WoW back in Legion. That, like, what you just described is exactly that boss fight, and oh my god, what a horrible fight.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite?
Yeah, I actually have two favorites.
Okay.
One of them was from Wildstar, and it was one of the first bosses in the first dungeon, or first raid rather. But either way, it was a giant, weird-shaped monstrosity that you had to run across a bridge to get to his giant floating platform. But his giant floating platform was made of a lot of hexagon shapes. And the thing was, he would do some various skills. One would be like a breath blast, and that could kind of scatter some people or do a bunch of damage. So you had to run around, and you would like randomly face in directions. Another one is he'd plant a bomb on some people that would destroy part of the platform. Like that's it. It destroys a part of the platform within a certain radius. And if you didn't run all the way to the outside and drop it on one single hex, then it was going to drop multiple pieces of floor out of the way. And that was the quote unquote enrage, is if you as a group of players destroyed your entire floor, you were over, and that was it.
Right.
That was actually really cool, just because of the way it was set up. People had to communicate and react well and plan well and actually be strategized on kind of what you're trying to do. Or else you could just completely take yourself out. The other one is the, what was it? I forget his name. Was it the Drake Master or something like that in WoW? In the raid that you had to fly up really high?
Dragonfly
Spire or something like that?
I don't...
Slurp is asking if you're asking about Experiment X89.
Yes, Experiment X89. Yes, that was one of my favorites, just because it was neat. It was fun. There was coordination required for players that could absolutely, like, the boss's mechanic was exactly the same, but you could mess up your entire party so easily if you didn't pay attention. But you could also execute absolutely flawlessly if you just communicated a little bit. But yeah, the other one I was thinking of, it changed every week. Like which drakes would unlock would rotate out every week. And depending on which ones you got, I think there were 5 different drakes, and you could free them in a certain order, and it would give the boss specific abilities, but it would also give you a specific advantage. And every week it would be a different set of 3 out of the 5 that you could get for your help.
I remember this fight. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, that was actually, it was like a very cool take, because like you said, it changed every week. So every weekly reset, you're like, oh, I wonder what 3 dragons are gonna get this time.
Yeah, that brings me to like my favorite stuff. I love things that are things that you can use to dispel, things that you can use to interact with it. Things like there's the oh my gosh, I forget which one it is, but it's the whole production, and you can talk to the wolf after, and he does the "run away, little girl, run away."
Oh, yeah.
There's like a whole thing. There's a lot more to it than just standing and fighting a boss, and I loved that. It was unique. It was not your typical raid, if you will. I really also loved things that you can actually use some of your utilities that you don't really use during raids very often. And it gave more meaning to having those utilities. Yes, Karazam. I really enjoyed those. Yes, the opera event. And I don't know. It feels nice because if I'm going to have utility skills, I feel like they should matter. And I think they mattered at one point, but then they along the way as MMOs kept going, specifically World of Warcraft, or I think there's some in Final Fantasy, those stopped mattering as much. And it became less important, kind of like crafting becomes less important unless you're end game, you know? But my least favorite, I'd have to agree, not necessarily a single individual one shot, but things that CC you and then is overlapped with something that does a decent amount of damage. So there's like no way you can get out of that. And you're like, why?
Yes.
Why would you do that to us?
Oh,
Which I think it would be cool, maybe just for a little bit of theory crafting. I think it'd be really cool to be able to get out of any sort of ACC, kind of like with Dead by Daylight, where you can try to like wiggle to get off of the killer's like shoulder, or get out of the trap if there is a trap that you got stuck in. I kind of like those things just because that gives you a little bit more autonomy over it instead of being like, well, I'm stuck here, especially when it comes to PvP. Like, I'm stuck and now I'm dead.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like winning the lottery of you're dead.
Yeah. And speaking of death, did you have anything you want to add to that real quick?
No, I was just gonna say it's more engaging if the reason that those two things overlap is because you made a mistake and then you can adjust for it. But if it's just completely, utterly random every single pull, then no, that's a bad mechanic.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
Speaking of death, Gandrin was wanting to give some death animation feedback. And I want to kind of get your idea on this. So I will try and short and sweeten this a little bit. The current state visual surrounding death, when Keenan got murdered by Steven during the Ranger Showcase, the Keenan collapsed into a pile of ash. Yeah. And Gandrin thinks it could be changed to provide better tactical feedback and battlefield immersion. So, for example, upon reaching 0 HP, the player should instead collapse on the spot, leaving their body as is, completely visible on the ground. Sorry, real quick, Laughables, we don't have Vec armor. We do have some shiny, spiky armor.
Could possibly kick one of those in.
Yeah, okay. But Gandalf was saying when the player is revived through like a cleric's resurrection spell, their body should burn brightly as they are raised back to life, kind of like the whole Phoenix thing.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what's your idea on that? Like, would that look a little more interesting?
That's scary. It's terrifying.
Oh, sorry. We're talking about death. I figured this would be appropriate.
Yeah, it is.
One of us. We're not here for that.
I guess like from a practical standpoint, if you evaporate, so say you're in a really large scale fight and your body evaporates immediately into ash, as someone that is like killing maybe a specific player or targeting a certain player, maybe I want to loot that body specifically because maybe I know that they're carrying something that I want. I would like to still have a visual indication that is their body.
Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe after I loot it is when it, turns into ash or something. But I do like the idea of the res animation being part of that, because I think visually that would look really striking and be something that's visually unique about the game in terms of res, and that would be kind of cool, especially if there was like I don't want a dramatic Phoenix animation. I think that would be a little corny, but just a tiny little bit of flames going in there and make it look a little bit like a Phoenix rising from the ashes when you res somebody. But
that would be neat.
Yeah.
What do you think about cosmetic shop purchasable? You get a tombstone on your ashes so everyone can see your name.
There's some pretty hilarious finisher stuff you could buy in Guild Wars 2's cosmetic shop. My favorite is the unicorn. So when you in Guild Wars 2 there's down state. So if your health bar expires, you go into a down state where you're not quite dead yet, you can recover, or someone can come in and heal you really, really quickly and get you back up to get you back in the fight. So it's not full dead. But one thing that you can do is, we call it spiking, where you go up to a person who's downed and you hold down your action key, and your character literally like spikes that person with like a flag, or
Oh my gosh.
or you drop a cow on their head. Like, it's a finisher, right?
That's funny.
And my favorite was the unicorn, because it's just a unicorn that comes in on a rainbow and tramples on their body, and then it departs on a
gosh.
rainbow. It's hilarious.
That's
So
funny.
that stuff's pretty entertaining. It adds some flavor to the game. I would be okay with that being in the game. Some people probably would be a fan, because they're all about, no, I don't want it to ruin the look and the theme of Ashes, but like, a sense of humor is also healthy.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
True. Fair enough. But yeah, I like the idea of the Ashes having something a little bit more, but I don't know really what, because I do like the idea of the ash pile and whatnot. It's a neat theme to everything.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Also, I'm just loving everything Ash is coming up with, like the animations, like when you're building stuff, and it's just kind of more so coming to life around you. I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, the attention to detail has been so impressive in these live streams, and I think I've said this before when I was speaking to Vladis about the Node live stream that we got, where we got to see the village for the first time. And I was like, did you see that they had bugs buzzing around the lanterns already?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
I
they
love
already had like bugs buzzing around. They had little animals and birds and stuff hanging around. It's like, that's like finishing touches kind of stuff, you know? Like, I don't expect to see that in pre-alpha footage at all.
Right.
Like, that's like the cherry on top. when
Those are
you're
like
done.
little final touches usually. Yeah,
Exactly. And I was like, and it's already there. And it's nice. It gives me this nice warm fuzzy that the devs, the care factor by the devs is extremely high. Their attention to detail is definitely there, but the passion for the project, like that to me is what screams passion for the project, because they're already wanting to put small details like that make the world as a whole, little by little, feel more immersive and more alive. And we're already getting that even in pre-alpha stuff. So that's really impressive to me, and a really good sign.
Yeah.